King Rakeyan Diwus was born during the transitional phase of the 10th century, in a time when the Sunda Kingdom and its predecessor, Galuh, were undergoing profound cultural evolution. His birth was seen as a divine sign, especially within the royal palace of the Sunda Galuh realm, where prophecies about an heir of gentle strength and divine speech had long circulated. According to oral tradition, his mother was a noblewoman from the spiritual priesthood of the Parahyangan Highlands, while his father descended from a line of warrior kings connected to Rakeyan Madang and Rahyang Sanghyang. This union of spiritual wisdom and warrior might came to define Rakeyan Diwus's personality and destiny. The name Diwus is believed to originate from ancient Sundanese linguistic roots. In its sacred interpretation, Diwus comes from di, a divine or honored prefix, and wus, meaning completed, matured, or ripened. Therefore, Rakeyan Diwus can be translated as the noble one who has matured by divine timing. This name was not merely a label but an embodiment of the royal expectations placed upon him. It implied wisdom, completion, and a readiness to lead with inner strength rather than sheer conquest. The honorific Rakeyan denoted noble status and was used for high-born princes of Sunda Galuh, further establishing his place in the royal hierarchy. From early childhood, Diwus showed exceptional intelligence and calmness beyond his years. His tutors, both Brahmanic and Buddhist scholars, noted his rapid comprehension of philosophy, history, and martial arts. He could recite sacred sutras and perform meditation rituals as easily as he could engage in mock combat with palace guards. His charisma also shone through. Those who met him were drawn to his presence, remarking on his tranquil yet commanding demeanor. He was said to be deeply empathetic, often conversing with farmers, soldiers, and commoners in his formative years to better understand their lives. His family ties were instrumental in shaping his early identity. He was a descendant of both the spiritual kings of Galuh and the reformist rulers of Sunda, giving him dual legitimacy in the eyes of his people. His great-grandfather was believed to be linked to Rakeyan Jayagiri, while his uncles had served in temples as custodians of sacred heirlooms. This ancestral blend of martial and spiritual authority placed Diwus in a unique position. He was seen as a bridge between the old and the new, the sacred and the secular. Such a lineage prepared him for a reign where harmony, justice, and renewal would be his guiding principles. As he reached adolescence, omens and celestial events further hinted at his destiny. A triple eclipse occurred around his 14th year, an extremely rare event that court astrologers interpreted as a cosmic announcement of the rise of a peacemaker king. Diwus, although still young, began participating in council meetings, where he offered insights on border diplomacy, agricultural reforms, and temple restorations. His maturity astonished senior officials, and it became clear that he was being groomed to take the mantle of leadership sooner than expected. His rise would not merely be political but also symbolic, the dawn of a golden era of wisdom-led governance. As Rakeyan Diwus grew into early adulthood, the political climate of the Sunda Kingdom was undergoing complex shifts. The realm was relatively stable, but tensions remained between conservative factions rooted in Galuh's old aristocracy and the more progressive Sunda nobility aligned with coastal trade interests. This internal dichotomy required a leader who could mediate rather than dominate. Diwus, with his unique lineage and rare blend of wisdom and empathy, soon emerged as the most suitable candidate to unify the court. By the time he turned 21, his reputation had reached even neighboring kingdoms, whose emissaries brought both curiosity and admiration for the young noble. The reigning monarch at the time, who may have been his uncle or cousin depending on oral sources, began delegating state responsibilities to Diwus, signaling his grooming for succession. Diwus handled these duties not with fanfare, but with a quiet efficiency that impressed the kingdom's ministers. His policies focused on reinforcing border outposts, strengthening alliances with the Highland priesthood, and reforming the internal rice tribute system to be more equitable to the peasantry. These early initiatives marked the beginning of what would later be known as the Gentle Reign, a term used by later generations to describe his philosophy of rule. The ceremonial ascension of Rakeyan Diwus was held in the sacred valley near Mount Sawal, a site considered neutral ground between the traditions of Galuh and Sunda. The coronation was attended by representatives from all corners of the kingdom, from the Parahyangan Highlands to the Priangan lowlands, from the coastal ports of Banten to the spiritual enclaves near Kangkwang. Diwus's anointment included the symbolic binding of the Talaga Pusaka, sacred lake cord, believed to be one of the original heirlooms passed down from Prabu Retikandayun, founder of Galuh. Upon taking the throne, Diwus did not immediately implement sweeping changes. Instead, he embarked on a lengthy tirakat, spiritual retreat, a practice reminiscent of earlier kings such as Rakeyan. During this period, he visited ancestral shrines, meditated in cave sanctuaries, and consulted with forest sages. This act not only enhanced his spiritual authority, but also established his reign as one grounded in inner clarity and divine insight. Many interpreted this retreat as a gesture of humility, a king seeking to understand before he commanded. By the end of his first year as king, Rakeyan Diwus returned from retreat with a vision to strengthen the spiritual unity of the kingdom. He issued the famous Mandala of 8 Paths Edict, promoting harmony between the Brahmanic, Buddhist, and animist traditions across Sunda. The edict called for joint temple upkeep, unified calendars of rituals, and cross-sectarian dialogues among spiritual leaders. It was a bold, unprecedented move that calmed centuries-old sectarian rivalries and laid the foundation for a culturally flourishing era. Diwus had not only ascended politically, but had also risen as a moral and spiritual beacon. As Rakeyan Diwus settled fully into his role as king, his rule began to exhibit a unique blend of moderation, cultural revitalization, and moral stewardship. Unlike some of his predecessors who emphasized territorial conquest, Diwus turned his attention inward, to the heart of the Sunda people and the soul of the kingdom itself. His administration became renowned for its inclusivity and diplomatic grace, earning him the nickname Sangresi Nada, or the Sage Ruler. Advisors from both mountain highlands and coastal ports praised his patience and fairness, and disputes among nobles began to decline as his justice system gained widespread respect. Diwus commissioned several important works of literature, carving into palm leaf manuscripts the traditional stories of Sundanese origin, combining elements from older Galu legends and coastal Sundanese folklore. He appointed royal scribes to record the dynastic histories, which would later evolve into the oral and semi-written traditions of Karita Parahyangan and Wawakan Sunda. Under his reign, poets, sculptors, and mystics were given royal patronage, leading to the creation of sacred mandalas, temple reliefs, and ritual dances that celebrated both agricultural cycles and celestial alignments. One of his most admired initiatives was the establishment of the Padapokan Waning Arga, a spiritual and educational sanctuary situated atop the serene hills near what is now known as Garut. This retreat welcomed scholars, seers, and even foreign travelers from as far as the eastern kingdoms of the archipelago. Here, teachings of Dharma, local cosmology, herbal medicine, and martial discipline flourished under state sponsorship. This sanctuary became a model for future monastic educational centers across West Java. But his reign was not without challenges. A great drought afflicted the southern valleys, prompting food shortages and rising unrest in several provinces. Diwus responded not with punishment but with relief expeditions, establishing granary reserves and reinforcing the canal systems. He personally toured the affected regions, offering prayers at sacred springs and conducting purification rites. This act of solidarity earned him lasting devotion from the rural population, who believed the king's presence had called the rain back to the land. One of the most profound events during his middle reign was a solar eclipse that was visible across the Sunda lands. Rather than treating it with fear and superstition, Diwus organized a kingdom-wide reflection ceremony. He declared the day a Hari Paleba, day of transformation, encouraging his subjects to reflect on their moral conduct, pay off debts, and seek forgiveness from family and ancestors. This ceremonial innovation would later become a local New Year custom known as Serentan, symbolizing not just the cycle of seasons, but the inner journey of each soul. Diwus's ability to transform fear into reverence, division into harmony, marked this era as one of subtle yet profound transformation. As Rakeyan Diwus aged, his role shifted from that of an active ruler to more of a spiritual patriarch, still very much in power, yet increasingly contemplative. He began referring to his own rule as Kalang Gengan Swarganing Bumi, meaning the echo of heaven on earth, indicating his belief that a king's duty was to harmonize the material with the divine. Court records and oral legends speak of the king entering long periods of meditative silence, sometimes for days, after which he would emerge with visions and guidance believed to be granted from ancestral spirits and the Hayang, the divine essence venerated in Sundanese spirituality. During this period, Diwus established the Mandala Kawiningan, a sacred council of spiritual advisors that included Hindu-Buddhist monks, local shamans, Ajangan Lewiyung, and wise women healers. This inclusive spiritual body helped advise on not only matters of theology and ritual, but also on law, environmental policy, and health. This kind of pluralistic governance was unusual for its time and became one of the hallmarks of Rakeyan Diwus's legacy, demonstrating a rare openness that inspired stability in an often fragmented political landscape. Meanwhile, diplomatic relations with neighboring kingdoms such as Tarumanagara's coastal remnants and the inland settlements of Mataram and Kadiri were carefully cultivated. Diwus frequently sent envoys bearing gifts of fragrant resins, spices, carved ivory, and sacred texts inscribed in old Sundanese script. These diplomatic gestures were reciprocated with rare books, exotic animals, and even visiting scholars. One Mataram prince, according to local lore, stayed in the Sunda Kingdom for 3 years studying metaphysics at the Padapokan winning Arga. As his physical strength declined, Diwus began grooming a successor, his son, Rakeyan Sunu, whom he raised not only as a warrior but as a sage. Diwus involved him in council meetings and spiritual observances, emphasizing the principle of Tri Tang Tu Di Buana, the 3 harmonizing roles of ruler, priest, and community. To ensure a peaceful transfer of power, he convened a grand assembly at Gunung Mandalawangi, during which the royal insignia, ceremonial kris, and heirloom crown were ritually cleansed and blessed before being handed symbolically to his son. The formal abdication did not signal Diwus's disappearance from public life. Instead, he assumed the revered title of Resi Mahawisesa, retreating to a secluded but well-visited mountain estate where he became a living oracle, sought by pilgrims and nobles alike. He authored fragments of philosophical teachings, many of which would influence later Sundanese mystical literature, and presided over seasonal festivals like Kawalu and Garuat, where he led purification rites meant to cleanse the land from spiritual corruption. His words during these festivals, often spoken in metaphor and song, were remembered for generations. In his later years, Rakeyan Diwus came to be seen less as a man and more as a bridge between realms. Legends speak of his ability to communicate with unseen beings, ancestral spirits, forest guardians, and elemental forces that ordinary mortals could not perceive. Central to these tales were the pusaka, or sacred heirlooms, that Rakeyan Diwus was said to wield. The most famous was the Kujang Wening, a uniquely shaped ceremonial blade believed to contain crystallized rainwater from the sacred spring of Chi Wening. Unlike weapons used for war, the Kujang Wening was a symbol of purity and divine judgment. It was used in blessings, truth trials, and royal decrees. Another revered heirloom was Sangsaka Suchi Mandala, a ceremonial banner made of woven golden threads and enchanted bark fiber, bearing a sigil that represented harmony between the mountain, the forest, and the sea. It was unfurled only during times of national spiritual threat, such as when a comet streaked across the sky or when omens suggested imbalance. The flag was believed to repel disaster and align cosmic forces back to peace. Rakeyan Diwus was also known for his mandraguna, or supernatural gifts, such as his uncanny ability to sense deception. He reportedly could read the inner vibrations of a person's voice and detect lies with perfect accuracy. His breath, said to be fragrant like blooming jasmine regardless of time or illness, was another sign of divine favor. Local shamans regarded him as a Manusa Dewata, a god in man form, which made him the object of both devotion and awe. His reputation extended beyond the borders of the Sunda Kingdom. Pilgrims from as far as Bali and the Malay Peninsula traveled to seek his guidance. Some chroniclers even claim that Buddhist monks from Srivijaya and Hindu sages from India visited his mandala, engaging in deep philosophical dialogues recorded on palm leaf manuscripts. Many of these texts, though lost in the fires of colonial upheaval, are rumored to survive in hidden libraries or secret mountain sanctuaries. In the folklore of the Sundanese heartland, Rakeyan Diwus is remembered not only as a ruler, but as a walking embodiment of sacred balance. His life is often portrayed in pontoon poetry and ritual chants, recited during harvest celebrations and rain-invoking ceremonies. His name is invoked when harmony is sought, between nature and civilization, power and humility, the visible and the unseen. The final years of Rakeyan Diwus were marked by an increasing detachment from worldly affairs. Having already transferred most of his governing responsibilities to his chosen successor, whose name is debated in different chronicles, he entered what local traditions call Tapa Brata Kawisasan, a profound meditative retreat dedicated to communion with ancestral spirits and divine forces. He withdrew to a secluded mandala near a sacred mountain, often identified with Mount Tangkuban Parahu or Mount Galunggung, where only a handful of trusted attendants were permitted to accompany him. One of the most frequently retold legends from this period is that Rakeyan Diwus did not die in the conventional sense. Instead, during a solar eclipse, He vanished while meditating beside the Sisanti spring, believed to be one of the sources of the Sitaram River. His robe and staff were found resting atop a large flat stone, but his body was never recovered. This led to widespread belief that he had attained moksha, spiritual liberation, transcending the cycle of life and death. Some oral traditions go further, suggesting he transformed into a guardian spirit, or Batara, tasked with protecting the Sunda realm for eternity. To honor his memory, a small shrine was built at the site of his disappearance. Over the centuries, it evolved into a kabuyutan, a sacred hermitage, where pilgrims from all corners of Tatar Sunda came to pray for clarity, healing, and blessings. This site became a focal point for spiritual gatherings, especially during full moons or important agricultural rituals. Even today, locals in the Bandung Highlands speak of a quiet forest glade where the wind carries whispers in archaic Sundanese, believed to be the voice of Rakeyan Diwus, offering guidance to those who listen with pure intent. In modern geography, several villages, springs, and sacred sites bear names associated with Diwus. The most notable include Chikawang Diwus, Luweung Rahyang, and Situs Sangyang Winning, which are believed to be directly tied to his legacy. These places are often visited not just for tourism, but for spiritual renewal. Regional historians and mystics continue to study his reign as a model of enlightened governance, one that fused temporal power with spiritual stewardship and earthly justice with celestial alignment. Educational institutions and cultural centers in West Java have also begun to revive the memory of Rakeyan Diwus through literature. Dance drama performances, wayang golek, and sacred gamelan compositions said to be inspired by his life. His philosophies on leadership, sustainability, and humility are gaining renewed interest in the 21st century, especially amid environmental and ethical concerns in contemporary society. To the Sundanese, he is more than a name in a list of kings. He is a mirror of their ancestral soul. Thus, the legacy of Rakeyan Diwus endures, not in marble or grand monuments, but in the flowing rivers, whispered prayers, and the quiet dignity of those who remember. His story is not only history, but a living guide, a song still sung beneath the towering trees of the Sunda lands.